Was Meghan Markle asked to leave the Invictus Games early? That is sort of the rumor that is swirling after Meghan flew home via private jet, by the way, with many, many bags of luggage, which probably included all her many, many coats, arrived back in California to be with her children. But of course, this got all the rumor mill churning because Meghan Markle likes to make a spectacle of herself at the Invictus Games. Her and Harry's very much excessive PDA really raised a lot of eyebrows. They were obviously very, very clingy. Her, especially, she looked needy, uncomfortable, sort of desperate for attention. So, obviously, people were wondering, was all this weird behavior on their part of the reason why the Invictus Games asked her maybe perhaps to leave early? I will give you guys my thoughts and what I think is actually going on with Invictus because, guys, don't believe everything you read. But if you haven't been to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany and I provide compelling royal commentary. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, I would love to have you back. We have an amazing fun time here on this channel going over so many aspects of royal news. And I also have a breakdown of Meghan Markle's Invictus Games fashion. So if you want to head over to my fashion channel, Royal Fashion News, there's a link up above and you can check out that most recent video. And I also got to say, guys, there's only a couple more days to enjoy the Ana Lucia gift. So if you spend $300, you get a free ring. I do have these amazing rings here, which are so pretty. My earrings, everything, guys. My necklace, of course, a heart necklace because Valentine's Day on Friday. If you're not aware, that is tomorrow. I was thinking today was Wednesday. It's been a weird week. So, guys, if you want to check that out, feel free to look at the link up above. And if you use code ROYAL20 and spend over $300 after using the code, you can get a free ring from the Irresistible collection. And you can still also save 20%. Code ROYAL20. You don't have to get the free ring if you don't want to, but you can still always save 20% by using the code ROYAL20. All right, guys. So my answer was Meghan Markle asked to leave the Invictus Games early. No, she was not. Now, I don't actually have any, let's say, sources telling me otherwise, but I have also been watching royals for a very, very long time. And Meghan Markle has never, ever stayed for the entire Invictus Games. She did not stay the entire time for Toronto, for Australia, for The Hague, for Dusseldorf, or for Vancouver Whistler. She's never stayed the entire time. Now, she spent the most times at the games at Dusseldorf because she arrived after the opening ceremony, but I think it was just a day later. And then she stayed the entire time until the closing ceremony. She, I believe, attended both the opening and closing ceremonies in Australia, but that was because they were on tour. So they actually did the opening ceremony an event or two, then left for a while, came back and did something else, I think the closing or something to that effect. So she has never stayed for an entire Invictus Games. So this is par for the course. This is not unusual. This is not a sign of, oh, they asked her to leave early. No, guys, this is just like standard operating procedure at this point. This is nothing surprising at all. She's never stayed the entire time. The Hague, she stayed for the opening ceremony, wasn't there for the closing ceremony, was there for the closing ceremony of Dusseldorf, but not there for the opening. This time she was there for the opening, but not the closing, as far as we're aware. So this is definitely part of a pattern here. So do I think Meghan Markle was asked to leave early? No. Do I think this was planned? Of course. Why then do all these rumors seem to go about? Because she leaves and it's like, oh, this wasn't planned. This was new. Guys, they don't generally tell us everything they're going to do in a week. Part of that is just for their own diluted security reasons. So they probably didn't tell you because they didn't tell you. There's not always a big conspiracy behind everything. And it just makes sense. I don't think she particularly enjoys the Invictus Games. I think she likes the attention for a period of time. And here's the truth, too. I think Invictus is fully aware of the both negative and publicity attention Harry and Meghan give them. And they're more than willing to deal with the negative publicity because Harry and Meghan give them a smidge of extra publicity that they wouldn't normally get otherwise. Because I think the great sin of the Invictus Games, you could say, is that the promoters have no trust that their veterans can generate people to attend. They don't believe that if they rely simply on the veterans to get people to go to the games, that people will go to the games. I think that's an absolute shame and travesty because I believe strongly if you promote people who are well-spoken, engaging to the forefront of the games, they can promote them and they can promote them well. And I think it'll help actually fill some of the stands. Some of the stands, honestly, guys, look like my high school during a girls' basketball game, and there were not that many people there. Like it could generate a decent crowd. I think the guys too. We had a better girls' team for a while, so I think the girls had a larger audience because I kind of sort of remember that. But yeah, it looks sort of like a high school basketball game. Not very exciting. And I think part of the problem is that how Invictus has set itself up at this point is that you know nothing about the competitors. Yeah, videos get out here and there, and oh, look, Harry's getting them an award. And that's great. And this is not to take away from their accomplishments. But what Invictus has done, which I think is horrific, is basically advertise it as something where you watch two people watch a sport. So you watch Harry and Meghan watch the Invictus competitors. You know nothing about the competitors, their families, what they've experienced. Meghan will go, oh, it's nice to see so and so again. Do you know anything about the story of this kid and their parent or anything? No. So why do we care? Because she's basically telling us we should care because she got a picture with this child. That's not how you promote this thing. That's not, because nobody really wants to go and watch two people watch a sport. Sure, they'll get their fans to do it, and journalists will still show up, but not that many people are going to be interested in watching two people watch something. You need to actually have interest generated in the actual sport and competitors themselves. And you know how real sport is done? Well, you have people who are incredibly good and they get to the top of the ranks, and then you're able to promote them. Shocking, I know, right? Right? But that's not how Invictus has played this. And I think Invictus is fully complicit, you could say, in the Harry and Meghan show because they believe that that's the only way they can generate interest in the games. And again, I would strongly encourage them to try not to rely on Harry and Meghan. They are not star power in the way they used to be. They are a toxic, tainted brand, and they seem to generate division. Harry and Meghan don't bring people together, they divide them. We even saw this with the Vanity Fair article. Was it the Vanity Fair? Oh, no, no, no. Excuse me. It was the Times. I believe it was the Times of London. There's a new Tom Quinn book coming out. I was talking about how either people loved or hated Meghan, even in the royal staff. And it's like, I can see that because that's what she does every time she goes anywhere. There's people who love her and people who hate her. There's nobody ever in the middle. They're on either side. And so why bring that toxicity into your games? Yes, Harry's the patron, but you can say, hey, might be best to sort of leave your clingy, needy, desperate wife at home. Maybe don't have her be kissy facing all over you the entire time. But they don't do that. And I think in part because they are nervous and scared that Harry and Meghan are the only reason people are watching. Because we saw this displayed fully. According to the report from Invictus, there were 40,000 people in the stands for the concert that was the opening ceremony. Did any of those people go to individual spectator events? No, like at one event, I think at the most it was a couple hundred people, it looked like. So you have 40,000 people, but then you can only get a couple hundred people to an event. That's like 1% of that total grand audience. So that means that the audience there was there for the concert, not there for the veterans. And that's why they put the concert on, is to make it seem like there's more people there to support when it's not something that transfers into the individual spectator events. And the thing is, when you look at the actual budget of the Invictus Games Foundation, it's like 2-3 million pounds at the most. That's nothing. Basically, everything about the games is paid for, as far as we're aware, by Canadian taxpayers and corporate sponsors, because the Invictus Games Foundation cannot support its own games based on how things are run at this point. So Meghan Markle was there. Obviously, they allowed her to be, and then she planned to leave for home. But of course, when Meghan got home, she had to post a picture to Instagram stories and tell us, oh, so glad to be home, but brought a little bit of Canada and Invictus with me. And then she had this random series of stuff at like a big bowl of fruit, her kids' names on a jersey. I mean, I kind of hate that stuff because it means nothing. Because we know you guys have been away from your kids forever at periods of time and been perfectly fine. So I hate the sort of kid excuse because I know it's not real. I know it's only part of the problem. Oh, we have to get back for our kids. I've been away for 5 days. I'm like, you were away for like 2+ weeks when the queen died. You were away for weeks at other times. So stop with the nonsense. We all know that's not true. Stop saying, oh no, the kids. That's an excuse. But I think it's an excuse because she really doesn't wanna be there the entire time, or maybe even Harry doesn't want her to be there the entire time. Of course, does Invictus tell her what to do? No. But I do believe that she sort of says, "Well, I can stay for this long," and they're like, "Great. As long as you leave at some point, that's awesome." Because they have to know she is a complete and utter distraction for Harry. Because when Harry is there by himself, he is very engaged with the competitors. He is not when Meghan is there. Yes, they do engage with them, but they're also doing googly eyes at each other, doing the little coupley things, because that's what happens when couples are together. You'll notice a lot in royal events that sometimes the couples are separated so that they can do different aspects of things. So for the Invictus Games, if there's two events going on, Harry should be in one location, Meghan should be in the other, if they're there to actually promote the games. They're not, though. Meghan is there to simply promote herself and nothing else. Simply to promote herself. She did silly things on Instagram, and she added nothing. She could not even wear one iota of Invictus branded gear. She would wear other things. She was obviously advocating for Montclair. She was advocating for Hermes, Stefania, or whatever that brand is that does the coats that are very pretty. She does those things, but she will not actually promote the Invictus Games. So she's not really there to promote the Invictus Games. But again, I think the Invictus Games is somewhat complicit in that scenario. So what does this mean for the future of Invictus? Because we have been watching this thing, and I have been watching it, and I have watched this sort of just train wreck occur. And is that, like I said, guys, Invictus might get some people there for alternative reasons, a concert, Harry and Meghan, what have you, but they're not there for the veterans. I was just so annoyed when this Canadian military guy go, "Oh, there's so many people there in the audience. They're there to cheer you on." I'm like, "No, they're not. They're there for the concert. Stop lying to these veterans. Stop saying they're there for you. They're not. They're there because they saw a good ticket to a concert and they got to see Chris Martin, Katy Perry, and Nelly Furtado, and I think one or two other people. That's why they were there. That's why they were there." So to tell them something else, I feel like sets up false notion of what is actually going on here. And we see with Invictus something that's sort of, you could argue, almost collapsing in on itself, because the games are so bloated for what they are that they're unsustainable. Because if you look at the Invictus Games Foundation, it only makes £3 million, or averages about £3 million a year in terms of what it's balancing. Now that's an increase, but the games cost like tens of millions of dollars. So they obviously cannot fund the games themselves. So they have to rely on other people, including the government. And I'm sorry, but I find it completely sort of gross for a government to be essentially funding two people's PR campaign. Like, they're creating this not for the veterans, but for Harry and Meghan. Now, it would be entirely different if Harry and Meghan were still there, but the Invictus Games had a very robust and strong, competent social media strategy where they put out, first and foremost, all the time, the veterans. Put out the veterans. Make sure they get their stories out there. There is a way to do this, but they're not doing it. They're not doing it. We get little tidbits here and there. Sometimes they do a little interview with somebody on the social media, but that doesn't get past the malaise of Harry and Meghan, because they rely too much on Harry and Meghan to get butts and seats. And so they're not really trying to actually work with the competitors to make sure that they can get people there too. And I've said this in a different video, and it's still true. To get people to actually go to the games, they need to be invested in the competitors playing. They can't be watching two people watch a sport and get all that invested in it. They might go for the interest factor of seeing a famous person, whatever, but they're not going to stay long term, because it's like they don't care who the competitors are. They have no vested interest in anything that's happening, because that's what Invictus has set up. That nobody has an invested interest in any of this except for the people who are already there. And I feel like, to a certain extent as well, because there's no, you could say, broader interest, because they haven't generated it well enough, that almost comes across in a way as sort of like a small talent show or something, because the only people who are truly invested in watching at this point are friends and family. Basically, just the people involved came. And I feel like that's the same vibe I get with Invictus. Yes, especially in Whistler, because you have the benefit of holidayers. If they're bored one day, if they don't want to go up to the mountain, they're sore, they're tired, or whatever, they can maybe spend some time watching the Invictus competitors, but are they invested in it? No, they're not. No, they're not, because they don't know anything about anybody who's competing. Because Harry and Meghan have made it all about themselves. And that is something that can be changed, but that is a directive that has to come from the top down in terms of Invictus. They have to figure out not to like totally phase Harry and Meghan out, but how to make the competitors a larger voice rather than just relying on Harry and Meghan Markle's pathetic Instagram strategy. That's what they have to do from a broader marketing branding perspective. I mean, even the thumbnails for this event are bad. They're simply aesthetically bad. They're a white background with yellow lettering. And I know I mentioned this before, but it's still true. You can't read it. And it's not even sort of where thumbnails are going. Like thumbnails now sometimes are just a picture with zero lettering at all. And I don't even think the pictures are all that engaging. Like sometimes you can't totally see them. And if you're on your phone scrolling, they're even smaller. But then you add in the fact that you put on text there that people can't read. Like I showed a picture of it to my mom, and it was small enough where I couldn't even read it and she couldn't either without blowing it up, because you want people to watch it, yet you don't actually make it aesthetically pleasing enough and within the realm of what people are doing with their thumbnails to get people to watch it. They're just not doing what they need to do here. And I totally am supportive of the veterans doing this. I think the games are wonderful in many ways, but they need to be self-sustaining, or at least not relying on governments to put them on. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm so glad they're not going to be in the United States in the next couple of years, because I don't want a dime of my taxpayers going to the Harry and Meghan show. And that's what that is. Birmingham is going to have to shell out tens of millions of dollars to put this on. And the thing is, when it comes to, let's say, the Olympic Games, the World Cup, those sorts of things, there's a reason why those are so popular to put on. And that's because they bring in a bunch of people who stay in hotels, buy food, buy clothing and other items within the city. So, in theory, now this has not been true really for the Olympics totally, but in theory, there should be enough people coming in to offset whatever costs the governments put into putting on the games themselves, in this case, the Olympic Games. But I don't think that's the same with Invictus, because we see such small audiences at the individual events. What that tells me is that they're not actually, that nobody is actually traveling into Vancouver or Whistler just for the games. They might be there, they might be local, they might be close enough. They're like, yeah, I can go to a concert there and get back home without having to stay at a hotel. When it comes to Whistler, oh, I'm on holiday. I can hang out and watch a little bit of this. There's going to be famous people here. Michael Bublé is going to sing. So I'm interested in that. But they were already there. There is not enough people coming in to offset the cost. I would love to see a breakdown on this. I would be love to be proved wrong, but I just don't think I am. I don't think I am, because they're not bringing enough people. So the government has spent $30+ million in Canada on these games, and I doubt they've recouped much of this cost at all, to be quite honest. They will generate a little bit from the competitors and their families and stuff that have come in for this, but are they large scale getting tons, tens of thousands of people to come in every day to watch these individual spectator sports? No. So the hotel rooms, I mean, I could probably check out right now. We go Vancouver, let's say next couple of days. See what's available. Yep. There's one or two that are, there's one that's sold out, two that are sold out. Everything else you could definitely get. And some of them might be a little bit more expensive than others for sure, but the Vancouver Hilton downtown is open. And I just want to point this out, because the money that could be generated from hotel stays could be huge. But if nobody's coming into town, those hotel rooms sit empty. That means there's not that many tourists there. I mean, some might have come in for the opening ceremony. I mean, if I changed it to let's see, the 17th, 13th through the 17th. Everything's still available. So that didn't change that much. So everything's still there. Everything's still there. That means things didn't sell out. That means there's still room in the city. And that means that I mean, it's just one hotel chain. There's obviously Marriott's, Hyatt's, those different places and local places and stuff. But what that tells me is that they're not selling out buildings. They're not selling out things because so many people are coming into the city that you can't get a hotel room without going, 20, 50 miles outside. That was what happens with the Olympics generally, is that everything within the city gets booked up, and then people have to go further and further out because there's so much interest, everybody wants to be there. That's not happening with the Invictus Games. It's there, it's generating some money for the local economy, but probably not as much as it could be or should be in this particular situation. So it's more important for Harry and Meghan to make sure they get their private jet than it is for them to actually promote the games and the veterans. They're not promoting them. They're just simply not. I just didn't get the sense at all that Meghan cared about the games. It was all about her and Harry. I mean, even her little tubing experience, which was quite frankly quite dumb, in my personal opinion, just like it was about her. Oh, I did tubing. Did she show anybody else, the competitors, their kids, anybody doing it? No. Did she try to attempt to? I feel like it's kind of funny. They're trying to, I think, angle Meghan as the motherly figure of the games. She read the book to the kids and stuff. The unfortunate thing is she's sort of awkward with kids, so it's not really all that great. But overall, they're not promoting the games well. There is a way to do this. There's 1,050% a way to do this where everybody wins. But the games are just seemingly subservient to Harry and Meghan. They're not pushing to try and find alternatives that I think would work. And I want to say to Invictus, I mean, again, I don't know your background. I don't know the things going on behind the scenes, but my thought is trust your competitors because I strongly believe that if you relied more on your competitors and less on Harry and Meghan, you get more butts and seats. You just have to figure out how to do it and be brave enough to try not to rely so much on such a toxic brand because unfortunately, the toxicity of Harry and Meghan is flowing onto you. And yes, he can still be your patron. Yes, she can still go, but stop putting them in the forefront. Get the competitors out there. They're going to be the ones who sell this long term. Without them, at some point, a government is going to tell you, no, we're not going to fund this thing, or we're going to give you a lot less money. And then what are you going to do? And if big companies like Monster or Boeing or whatever, they are still there being supporters and sponsors. If they're at some point just not getting a return on the sponsorship because nobody's watching the game, because you can't even see the competitors, because 90% of Getty Images is all of Harry and Meghan, are they still going to support the games at some point? Because if their brand name isn't getting out there in connection with this, that's the whole point. That's the whole point for them. And so they're missing out on something because they can't even support themselves by what you're promoting. So guys, that is my thoughts. Probably my final thoughts maybe on the Invictus Games. There might be more, but don't believe everything you read because I feel like sometimes because Harry and Meghan are so toxic, people believe and make up any negative narrative about them. But this is par for the course. This is what she has done for every Invictus game. I strongly don't believe she was asked to leave. She was there of her own volition, left of her own volition to spend time with the kids because, they don't have like nannies or stuff to take care of them. And not like other people can be gone for a long period. Anyways, I just don't totally always buy the kids are alone. We need to get back for the kids situation. I feel like that's a little bit of a cop out, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall talk to you again soon. Bye.